there guys, this is Eli G. Brown / Eli G. Brony, and welcome to another Bionicle MOC video. This is certainly a very large one, and certainly a very complex one that I have made. This is supposed to be some giant gold and brown spider-like creature that I have created. Probably somewhat related to the Visorak, or maybe even related to the skull spiders in some way. And yes, I am aware that in real life, spiders are known to have 8 legs, and this one only has 6. Well, let me point some things out. Visorak were called spiders, but they only had 4 legs. Lord of the Skull Spiders only had 6 legs, and he was called a spider. The skull spiders themselves only had 4 legs. So, keep in mind, Bionicle is not on Earth. They don't follow the same rules that real life does. They ignore the rules that real life does. So just because spiders have to have 8 legs in real life, it doesn't mean that they have to have 8 legs in fiction. And in this case, Bionicle is fiction, which means that they don't have to have the spiders have 8 legs like a real spider does. So that is what this is, a spider, even though it doesn't have as many legs as a real spider has. Now this one was, well, here are a couple of goals that I had when making this. Well, for one thing, I wanted to make a MOC that didn't use so much of the character and creature building system, because the character and creature building system can pretty much get a bit dull after a while, and it probably is just good to try out building with all sorts of other different parts. Now, some character and creature building system parts were used in the making of this MOC right here, but it was mostly just a little around the end of the MOC making process, and not really a whole lot of the character and creature building parts were actually used in making this. Just mostly used for the legs and the outer part of the body, but most of the inner part of the body uses some of the older Bionicle parts, such as a couple of the Toa and Nika main torso pieces, and it also uses at least 3 of the Ben 10 main torso pieces, the main torso pieces of those Ben 10 figures that came out in 2010, a couple months after the Bionicle Star sets came out, and months before the official Hero Factory sets came out. So, I had a couple of those Ben 10 body pieces that I got off of Bricklink. I didn't have any initial plans for what I could use those main torso pieces for. Just thought about getting them for some Hero Factory MOC making and also some Bionicle MOC making, and this is what I managed to get from it. Using 3 of those torso pieces in making such a large creature, just putting the main body pieces together to try to come up with something that was pretty large. Now, a feature that this creature has is that it can actually open its mouth, well, a little ways. Now, it's not actually connected very well. In fact, only a few Technic pieces are used in connecting that. Now, something that I managed to do, like, very close to the end, is actually have this creature have some balls inside of it. You know, like, there are these little balls that come out of its mouth. As for what they exactly are, I'm going to say that these balls right here are actually supposed to be the eggs of this creature right here. Like, this is a mother spider that lays her eggs from her mouth. You know, like she just spits out these eggs and they hatch into her babies. So that is my explanation for what these ball pieces are supposed to be, these Zammer spheres, as they were originally called when they first came out in 2006. So, those are supposed to be her babies. I've noticed that I've missed one. Well, her eggs, anyway. Those are what those balls are. Now, when making this, I just started off with a skeleton, and I just worked my way by adding all sorts of different pieces together. Like, when I managed to get the main body, I just needed to find ways to cover it up, like covering up as many of the gaps that I could. And then there was the point where I needed to add on the legs, and I ended up doing that by using a few of the bone pieces in the character and creature building system. And of course, I also used a couple of those CCBS bone pieces to connect the upper bodies, but then the front pair and the back pair of the legs actually used the Ben 10 upper leg pieces, and these pieces were also used for some of the earlier Hero Factory villain sets, though these in particular, the brown ones, those actually came from the Ben 10 series themselves. Got a couple of those off of Bricklink, and I know that they didn't come from any Hero Factory sets because none of the Hero Factory sets had these pieces in this color, so those came from the Ben 10 sets, which I had gotten off of Bricklink. Now, as far as those double connection points goes, like the ones that were used for the Toa Metru sets that came out in 2004, this uses a combination of both the 2004 and 2008 version of those bone pieces. I did want to use only one specific type, but I started to run out of them, so I ended up having to use one of the newer ones, the ones that break more easily, so I had to be really careful. Those are used for the center of the legs, and also used for this part right here. And I also had a number of these spider tip pieces that came out in the Hero Factory series in Invasion from Below. So I used a couple of them. I had some brown ones that I used for these parts of the body, and then I had a whole bunch of gold ones which I used for the tips of the legs, and also used for the lower part of, this is supposed to be the spider's jaw, the jaws that the spider uses to feed on and also to attack its enemies with. And once I had gotten about the spider's whole body assembled, I just looked around to see if there was anything else that I could add on, which led to these armor pieces being added on to the front, adding a couple of the brown clawed pieces from Ogrum, and using all sorts of the extra gold pieces I had in the original Bionicle building system. Just finding other places to put the different parts that I had on there. And I think that it works out really well. Now, not quite sure as to how I'm going to be able to make more complex MOCs such as this one, since it basically had used a lot of the extra parts that I had in my parts drawer. And there was someone that suggested that I should try going onto Bricklink to seeing what other parts that I could get for some other MOCs. I may do that at some point, but I don't have any plans on purchasing any parts off of Bricklink at this time, which was pretty much, this one was pretty much just relying on using parts that I already had, which I suppose is kind of weak when you're only relying on what parts you have. But I didn't really have any initial plans for making this sort of creature. I just started putting a number of the different main body pieces together to try to come up with some sort of spider-like creature. And this is what I ended up getting from just continuously putting on any parts that I could find that I thought would really work out with this. So, that's pretty much what I have to say about this creature. I am aware that not everybody is going to agree that this creature, or this MOC in general, is really the best thing that I could have made. I may try to come up with making something a lot bigger in the future. I don't know when I'm going to be able to do it, or if I'm going to get any parts to try and do it. though I may look up how to make much larger MOCs, though I'm not going to try to copy anyone, not going to try to follow instructions that other people have made in creating their MOCs to create something new. Just going to see what I could come up with doing my own connections. But anyway, not quite sure how often I'm actually going to be doing a lot of the mocking process, but I just thought of doing this, just showing it off and seeing what people think about it. And I think that it turned out pretty well, although I am going to say it probably could have been done better, like it could have maybe used a lot bigger legs, or maybe used much bulkier legs rather than just the thin Bionicle legs that are just pretty basic. But this was what I got. So, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next time.